We're still working on getting some of our annual color in the ground. The front garden has basically been finished. The back garden, we've done the bigger annual beds, but we still have some spaces to plug in. I think there's like probably the equivalent of like 4 trays of annuals left. But in the middle of that, we still have some shrubs that we're putting in. We've got these 2 areas in the front garden fenced off. I showed this in the video. If you're watching the video from a few days ago, all the annuals are listed on that video. We had this lemon lime nandina in a container last year, and a few of what we'll do with container plants is we'll keep them in container plants for a couple of years and then plug them into the garden later or give them away or whatever. You know, at some point things outgrow the garden, but that lemon lime nandina will stay small like this, but it always has that kind of chartreuse new growth on it. I've said before, I think this plant comes into its own after a year or 2 in the ground. I don't think it looks its best initially, but when we see ones that are a few years old in gardens, they're really just glowing little 3-foot round balls in the garden. But I think they're hardy in zone 6 to 10, so a lot of folks grow, can grow that particular one. But we put the lemon lime nandina there. In a video a week or 2 ago, we put some obsession nandinas in on the other side. Super tough plants out here by the asphalt, by the road, in an area we may maintain overall a little bit less. But in this video, I think I've put in, I don't know how many more plants we're going to talk about. We put quite a few in, and let's go talk about them. We added this little Delosperma called it's garnet. It's part of the Jewel of the Desert series. It's an ice plant that was actually brought to us by students in the horticulture club at NC State. They visited on Monday, so it was nice. They brought a plant for us, and it's these ice plants, the perfect plant for out here by the road, by the curb, and the asphalt conditions that are out by the road we've talked about. This one has a really, really hot pink center, and then a red around the outside. So really, really hot colors on that one. It will bloom pretty much all summer out there. The more, the more heat, the better for that particular plant. And thank you again for visiting the garden. If you're watching this video and you're in the NC State Horticulture Club, we enjoyed the visit. The garden's a little ahead of where it was in the last couple of years, just because we're not doing massive projects, sidewalks and patios and those kinds of things. We're able just to really concentrate on getting plants in the ground, trying to keep it halfway weeded. Although we started the video over there with that lemon lime nandina, and there's crabgrass growing as I'm looking at it, as I'm talking to the camera. I got to get some crabgrass over there out. And there's a few more weeds than we typically have, just because we haven't mulched like we normally do. But I've been trying to get this mulch to break down a little more this year and not have it be so thick. So it's costing us a little bit. We have a few more weeds, but we're going to mulch it here in the next 2-3 weeks once the rest of this plant's in the ground. The Pearls of Perfume mock orange is pretty much, I think, peak flower at this point. I still see some buds over there on it that haven't opened yet, but I don't think at this point flowers will fade before they're all open. So that's probably about as, but it's out of control. It's just unbelievable how floriferous that thing actually is and how long it lasts. And again, with those closed buds on it, it'll be blooming for another couple of weeks at least. And then it throws those, like I've said, additional flowers all season long. We had this is another container plant. This is a Paul's Gold Cami-cypress or threadleaf cypress, people call these. Paul's Gold was picked because it's supposed to be more heat tolerant overall than Gold Mop. We've had this one in a container for probably 3 years at this point. It's just such a good container plant. It's just easy color in a container, and you can move it wherever you want to move it and shuffle it around. And if you happen to ignore it by accident occasionally, it's pretty forgiving overall. Pretty tough plant. Last year we were doing some traveling in the fall, so we put all of our container plants in the vegetable garden over there, and so we've been either deciding whether those things were going to go back in containers for this season or go in the ground. So that lemon lime nandina ended up in the ground. This Paul's Gold has ended up in the ground. It looks good behind this loropetalum, next to this larger leafed red buckeye next to it. Same thing with this hydrangea paniculata. They all kind of play well here together. On the edge of the native garden, we'll keep this little out to be kind of pyramidal. You can do whatever you want to with these. I had a neighbor with one of these little gold threadleaf cypress that kept them 18 inches tall for 20 years. I lived 4 houses from this guy. He just sheared them off constantly into little balls about this big, and they never grew taller than the day they were planted. So you can do that, or you could do like I did. I let one get 8 feet tall next to my deck, and then I one year just cut it down to 3 feet and then let it grow back to 8 feet over the next 3 or 4 years. Your choice. I'll probably keep this one a little more pyramidal and narrow next to the native garden here. A couple of cool things along the edge of the driveway. This is a pittosporum called Spring Bouquet, and I don't think we've shown it yet. It was planted it over here last year, didn't really talk about it at that time. It's in the Southern Living Plant Collection. Look how cool that new growth is. This is just like peak, you know, what this thing can be. It will get a flower on the interior of the plant that smells kind of citrusy. You don't really see the flowers typically on them. This one just took no damage at all. And I don't want to say we had a cold winter, but we definitely had winter. We just had not had winter at all in a long time. So it was kind of unusual just to have 18-degree nights, 15-degree nights, that kind of thing. And that one just took no damage at all. Some of these other variegated pittosporum did take some damage in the area, so kind of interesting that one didn't at all. I mean, it just held up perfect to it. We put in this new osmanthus, and this one's called rotundifolius, which just means round leaf. Really interesting little osmanthus along the edge of the driveway over here. It's under a white buckeye that's going to move. We've intended to move this one over here more into the native garden. We're going to keep the red buckeye where it is, but this white buckeye, these get very sprawly in time, so this is too narrow of a space to keep it. But we went ahead and put the osmanthus in the ground just so we didn't have to continue to water it in the pot, and I'll get this thing moved. It's about to flower, and I figure if I move it while I'm gonna enjoy the flowers before I move it. I feel like if I move it right this minute with it in bud, the flowers will just collapse on it. And we won't get to see it flower, because I think last year it was one little stick with one flower cluster on the top. These are a little slower to bloom than the red buckeyes typically. But the plant looks great. We're gonna move it over there. Osmanthus went in this morning. We have one of each of the little lucky lantana, and I think we put 2 of them in the front garden in a video last week as you're watching this. This is little lucky lavender. This one has been just blooms and blooms and blooms. It's been, blooming in the container like that the whole time. And these are really compact growing lantana. They're not hardy here, so they're not going to be perennial for us, but they'll bloom from now until fall. There added 3 of them to this area here. This is our problem space. This has been our every garden is going to have some space where you hadn't quite figured it out yet, and this one has that kind of that space for us. We've been, last year really wrapping up the front garden, converting that turf into bed space, and we've kind of got that where we want it. The patio went in, we kind of got all this where we wanted it. The vegetable garden is pretty much dialed in. We've planted all the vegetables at this point. Everything's kind of dialed in. This became the spot where if we didn't know where it was going to go, this is where it went. And then from there, though, we moved our dahlias. We're on the other side of the vegetable garden. They kind of block the view of the vegetable garden. We moved them over here, and rabbits have decided to chew on the dahlias. This spot is super weedy because we were waiting for these dahlias to come up before we got in here and started. When the dahlias are coming up like this much, if you come in here and try to weed the thing, you'll end up messing up your dahlias. And they're one of the last things to come up. So it allowed for some weediness in here. And then it's been perennial that we decided we didn't want over there, comes over here. Perennial that that we acquire somewhere that we don't know where it's going to go yet, it goes over here. Everything's just gone over here. I think we're finally going to bring some organization to this. We'll get it mulched, get the weeds out of here. There's some Japanese stilt grass in here, unfortunately. So this area stays a little bit moist because any watering we do back this way, or any rain that falls or falls on the house and the roof comes this way, and there's a little bit of a sunken spot here. And that's kind of the perfect place for Japanese stilt grass to just take over. Nasty, nasty weed. Takes over a lot of spaces. And the city of Raleigh, if you take any greenway in the city of Raleigh, greenways typically go through lower places that weren't developed for a reason. Now they've developed them into greenways, so they're low areas in the city typically. Japanese stiltgrass is just taking over everything in those areas. But anyway, we're trying to get this, you know, get this, I would say one of the last areas that had zero plan with a plan. Dahlias will be back here. They're coming up along here. They'll be this tall. They'll be the backdrop to these other lower growing perennials that you'll see from the native garden. We put in several plants in the native garden. It'll be in a separate video coming up. I'm gonna put the drone up above it and draw the lines on the ground. We're starting to have enough material over here that it's gonna actually make sense, because it just looked like one random plant here or there. And it still kind of does, but you'll see when I lay out the paths that area is starting to come together. Did add one shrub to this space. This is a hydrangea paniculata that'll be new to the Southern Living Plant Collection, called Pink Shades. And it's one of the ones that in the breeding has been selected for us to get that pink color here in the South. You know, you guys are lucky. We were up in upstate New York last year when the hydrangea paniculatas were turning, and we went to White Flower Farm, and you know, all the hydrangea paniculatas and oak leaf hydrangeas and hydrangea arborescens were all these bright pink colors, absolutely beautiful. We shot a video at a mechanic shop up there. Was that in where was that? Connecticut. In Connecticut, because it was so beautiful with those things turning pink. So it's just normal in the north that they're going to fade to some version of pink. Down here it's not. Our nights aren't cool enough, but they're selecting through breeding now, having to require less of those cool nights in order to get the pink coloration, or the, you know, really bright colors on these hydrangea paniculatas. There was out front, in the front along the road, about a week ago, you may remember, we pulled up this coneflower, that species coneflower from the front out at the road, and so I stuck that in there yesterday. It was a nice big clump, so that should hit the ground running. There's Amsonia up blooming. There's some phlox that's going to bloom pretty soon. There's some salvia out here. There's actually some nice things out here. It's just that it's weedy and it's a bit of a mess, so we'll get all that under control here, hopefully over the next few weeks. Something we didn't show in the any video here is we do have a patch of potatoes that we put in. We started them in the house. We've shown this in the past, and we've typically done them in raised bags. But I finally, I think, have this soil broken up enough over here where I can stick the shovel down in the ground 10, 12 inches that we can grow potatoes in the ground. So we're gonna find out. They have jumped out of the ground super fast. Like a week ago, these potatoes, it was 1 inch tall. So they've grown a foot in a week. And so I expect that there's gonna be potatoes down there. We'll find out a little later. It's usually, with them in the bags, the black bags above the ground, they become hard to water in time, and it kind of shortens the amount of time before the foliage dies back. You need to let the foliage die back before you dig them. I think in the ground, the foliage is gonna last longer. The longer the foliage is up, the more potatoes I'm gonna have, the larger the potatoes will be. So I'm hoping having them in the ground is advantageous that way, but it'll probably be June before we pull them up. In the bags, it was typically mid to late May when we were flipping the bags over to find out what we had. Hopefully this delays it just a bit more and we get a few more by having them in the ground. We have 5 magnolias that are going to the Wallace garden eventually when we get back down there and work on that. These were given to us by Kevin Paris last year when we visited Spartanburg Community College. If you remember that video, he is K. Paris Magnolia is one that he named after his mother. That one that Steph was just focused in on there. That flower is starting to decline, but there's a photo from my phone that you can see now. It has this beautiful soft pink. This one is named Melissa Paris after his wife, his late wife. It's an absolutely beautiful flower. I mean, I couldn't believe that on that little, that plant, we were able to get that flower this first year. Really, that incredible soft pink, beautiful, fragrant flower. Again, I put that photo on Instagram the other day. If you're not following us over on Instagram, you can see some of these things that we may not end up in a video that happen to have one flower like that. But the other, all five of these magnolias will end up in that project down in Wallace. Hopefully sometime this spring we'll get down there and take care of that. We added a ruscus or butcher's broom to the back line. They're great in dry shade. So that's one of the plants that if you have, again, if you have dry shade conditions versus moist shade conditions, you really got to learn the plants that will grow in those dry shade areas. But ruscus is a good one to use. It can be a bit prickly, just to let you know, but it's so slow growing, you're never going to have to prune on it. You're never going to have to do anything to it, really. So it doesn't really matter that it's a bit prickly. We're, again, developing this back corner back here. This is another space just because there was a shed here that I was turning into a greenhouse that got removed. So we threw in plants in this corner, but things are starting to fill in. I think by mid-season, a lot of the plants that we've put in here, Japanese maple, hollies, other things. There's a deciduous azalea back there that we haven't shown. There's a native big leaf magnolia, great understory native tree to the southeast. We've got this, where we get this one, got this one down in Athens last year at Piccadilly Farm is where we got that last year. I love the leaves on this. Also love the leaves on this Elysium. Look how beautiful that is. All that new growth. This one has been, we had it in a gallon container. It's got this piece that's just kind of sprawling across the ground right there. I think ultimately that'll end up coming off and this will be the main shrub. But if you leave some of this growth on it like this, that will help get energy to the rest of it, get energy to the roots. But these pieces that are coming up are more indicative of the growth habit that this should be having. But for some reason, this one has decided to head across the ground. But that intense new foliage looks absolutely fantastic. That Sun King Azaleas come out of the ground running, died back to the ground, this winter, and now look how much things grown in like 2 weeks. Something like that, and it looks great with that really intense maroon foliage on that Elysium. So there you go. There's some of the things we put in the ground in the last, I guess that was just yesterday afternoon. We planted all these things plus stuff in the native garden that will be in a separate video where I'm going to outline that path over there. If you're not following along with that, I put all of those the native garden videos in a playlist called Native Garden. If you want to follow along with that. I think we're kind of up to date on most of the shrub container things right now, and we still have a lot of annuals, though we're going to plug in any holes that we have out here. We use annuals as flowering temporary plants we use as placeholders for when we find the thing that we really, really want in that spot. We'll just fill those holes in the meantime. So thank you guys so much for following along. What is it you're adding to your garden this spring? I think we've put some unusual things in this garden this year. We really wanted to focus on finding some things that we had never shown before. That's definitely in the native garden over there and then over here as well, just because it's fun. It's fun to find new plants. It's fun to expand our knowledge, and the more species we have in this garden, overall healthier I find it to be. Thanks for watching.